Just last Friday, it was announced that Jalen Ramsey, former All-Pro and Super Bowl winning cornerback of the Los Angeles Rams, will be up for trade in these coming days, and the media world has went crazy speculating on just where this future Hall of Famer will land. Well, contrary to the belief of many of the NFL pundits, a unlikely team seems to be making a quiet push for the services of Jalen Ramsey, and we're going to talk about it right after this.
I'm from the foe, you dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe, as I am on my road to 1K, trying to get this channel monetized. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to this report. Now, if you all didn't hear, or if you were not out here in these Twitter streets, you may have missed this particular little clip here. Well, Adam Reich of NFL Network went on live yesterday or the day before to say that the Carolina Panthers may just be a sleeper team that may jump to the front of the line and go ahead and make the moves necessary to bring Jalen Ramsey to the Carolina Panthers. Now, if you missed that report, I'm going to go ahead and let you hear it, and then I'm going to give you all my my thoughts on the potential of this trade happening. So let's go ahead and hear this little clip right here.
You know, what's funny is we talked about this on the show last week because I said that he was possibly to be traded. I wrote an article for NFL.com. The team that I put out there was the Cincinnati Bengals, which I thought made a lot of sense. But what was really interesting is that on the show was Deangelo Hall, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, or don't forget about Carolina." And then a couple days later, he ends up in Carolina. So I don't know if he was tipping his hand or something, but keep an eye on it.
Yeah, well done, D. Hall. Just trying to make the public plea that one of the best corners in the NFL ends up on a team that you're going to be in a position, by the way, that he is now going to be coaching with the Panthers.
Well, there you have it. That is the report by, not necessarily a report, but just a conversation that was recalled by NFL Network's Adam Reich that he did have with our current secondary coach, former NFL cornerback, and All-Pro and Pro Bowler, all of the accolades, Deangelo Hall. Now, I'm going to give you all the good, the bad, and my overall conclusion on the potential of this Jalen Ramsey trade happening, as I always do. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with the positives. Now, obviously, his body of work and who he is speaks for himself. Jalen Ramsey has been a Pro Bowler in 6 consecutive years, and in just 7 years in the NFL, he is a 3-time first-team All-Pro member. But just listen to these stats. Now, in just 7 years, Jalen Ramsey has 19 interceptions, 92 pass breakups, 452 tackles, 375 of those being solo. Now, we first need to start with the beginning of that. 19 interceptions speaks to the fact that these quarterbacks throughout the league know simply not to try Jalen Ramsey or there will be repercussions. But 92 pass deflections is just absolutely insane for just 7 seasons. That means that he is around the ball all game long, whether it be in the air or whether that be following a ball carrier or pursuing a ball carrier. As you can see with the 452 tackles, 375 of those, again, being solo tackles, being he needed no assistance, no gang tackling, just him and the other player, and he took them to the ground. He is big, he is physical, he is a sure tackler, and in the latter parts of his career, he will easily be able to transition into a safety role if his speed ever does wane because of his physicality and his tackling ability. Jalen Ramsey is an all-out baller, and he is going to be a future Hall of Famer. Now, another thing that I have to say, that if we were to bring this guy here, he and Jaycee Horn would arguably, not really arguably, they would be the absolute very best cornerback tandem in the NFL. Jaycee Horn and Jalen Ramsey would be a better tandem, in my opinion, than Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye when they went to the AFC Championship game with that dominant defense back just a few years ago, where they fell short of going to the Super Bowl with Blake Bortles as their quarterback. They had 2 lockdown All-Pro corners on the outside, and I believe that Jaycee Horn could do that much better into a higher level than what we've seen out of AJ Bouye back then. Now, the next thing, or the next reason why Jalen Ramsey himself may want to be a part of this Carolina team, not just saying why we would want him, but why would Jalen Ramsey want to be a part of the Carolina Panthers? Well, he has a very, very strong familiarity with a lot of the faces that are scattered throughout this defensive coaching staff. So for starters, our current defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, was the secondary coach for that Super Bowl winning team for the LA Rams back in 2021. Jalen Ramsey was an All-Pro back then, dominant as usual, and Ejiro Evero was his coach back then. Now, just going even deeper into those Rams ties, we have our current defensive back coach and specifically cornerbacks coach in Jonathan Cooley, who also came over from the Rams, who also served on the defensive staff for that 2021 Super Bowl team, that is also very, very comfortable and very, very familiar with Jalen Ramsey, and Jalen Ramsey being very familiar with he and Ejiro Evero. Now, if you want to just speak to a little bit earlier in Jalen's career, when he got into the league and he was drafted to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the first defensive coordinator he had for the first 4 years of his career that again took him to the AFC championship game is currently a defensive line coach on this Carolina Panthers staff, and that is Todd Wash. He was the actual defensive coordinator for that Jacksonville team back then, and Jalen Ramsey, his first 4 years in the league, spent a lot of time with Todd Wash as well. So the familiarity and the comfort level and the overall just ability to conform and just come over to the team and just be a leader because he knows what is pretty much going to already be instilled would be a very, very good thing that we would get out of making this move. Jalen Ramsey and his transition would be pretty much seamless, coming in playing under coaches that he is already familiar with. And the final thing I want to speak on is simply the fact that Jalen Ramsey is a dog in every sense of the word. On the field, he runs his mouth, he backs it up, and he's not scared to talk. One of my biggest gripes with my Carolina Panthers over the past few years, especially in the post-Cam Newton era, is there has been no fight, no swag, no nothing. There has been no team identity. If you all are not going to be the super cool, we're just like that, y'all can't touch us guys, y'all have to be a group of dogs that just go out there and dominate, be physical, bark, bite, and do everything in between. And Jalen Ramsey is that by nature, and him infusing that energy into this locker room is something that has been much needed since the departure of Steve Smith nearly 10 years ago. We have needed a dog in the locker room. Yes, we had Josh Norman, but Josh Norman was not this, and Josh Norman is my guy. But Jalen Ramsey is just different. He's just a level higher than that, and his influence, his overall characteristics that he would bring to the locker room, if that were able to seep into the other parts of the defense and maybe the entirety of the team as a whole, that would be completely invaluable. And you could not, that's pretty much, there's nothing more valuable than bringing that type of culture to your team, man. It is just invaluable. But those are pretty much what I see. That would be the positives in terms of bringing Jalen Ramsey to the Carolina Panthers. So inevitably we have to switch over and talk about what would be the negatives. Well, of course, the cost of Jalen Ramsey, and I think it's one more thing, more than likely the cost of Jalen Ramsey, man. So what would it actually cost us if we're talking about what would the initial move before we even had to put any pen to a check? What would we have to give up? Now, Jalen Ramsey is 28 years old, in the prime of his career, with not a lot of money guaranteed left on his contract, but if you were going to go out and get a guy of this caliber, just coming off a Super Bowl just a year ago, a six-time Pro Bowl, a 3-time All-Pro, you're going to have to give up, and this is probably a low ball. I would have to say at least a couple of second-round picks if the Rams do not demand a first. But with them going ahead and shopping Ramsey, I don't know if a first is something that they could reasonably demand with teams knowing that they're actually going to have to trade him. Going to add that the teams knowing that the Rams actually want to trade him. Now, that would just be the initial cost of going to get Jalen Ramsey, would be the draft capital needed to actually bring him to your team. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, Jalen Ramsey does not have any guaranteed money on his contract after this last year. So whatever team that he goes into is more than likely going to be met with the demands from his agent that he wants a new contract, and somebody of his caliber is going to want to break the bank and reset the market. And Jalen Ramsey definitely deserves that. He is going to not only cost us draft capital, he is going to cost us future cap and future money on top of that as well. Now, why is that necessarily a problem for a player of Jalen Ramsey's caliber? If you don't know, we still have Brian Burns to pay. We have Derrick Brown coming up. We have Jaycee Horn as well as Brady Christensen, all in the next 2 or 3 years. And going out and getting a guy that is going to demand such a high salary would make it extremely hard to go out and fill the rest of the needed positions throughout the roster, because so much of the cap would be allocated to a cornerback, and you just going out and drafting a guy in the same exact position in the top 10 just 2 short years ago would just show a sense of a type of organizational dysfunction, if you would, because that just shows Jalen Ramsey, why exactly would you do that at this current time, man? So that brings me to my conclusion. Should we actually go out and make this move for Jalen Ramsey? I am going to have to say no, we shouldn't. Jalen Ramsey and going out and doing this is a win now move for a team that feels as though they are ready to compete now and in the near future. We still are in quarterback purgatory. We don't know if the picks that we have right now will be needed to actually trade up and get a guy if we actually hit some draft day turmoil and actually sacrificing that to go out and get a cornerback when the quarterback is the position of need that you need the most, the absolutely most important position in the sport. It would be a general managing malpractice to potentially trade draft capital when we do not have the most important part in place. And as well as you have Brian Burns, who is undoubtedly going to reset the market. Derrick Brown, I'm not exactly sure, but he is going to be somewhere near the top of the market. Jaycee is going to want to break the market. We have too much coming down the pipe to just invest money right now and in the future cap for this young QB that we're going to have on his rookie deal, the ability to go ahead and bring in pieces and make a run similar to how we saw the Eagles do last year. We can't sacrifice all of that just to have Jalen Ramsey now when we know that what we need him for, which is prominence, playoff victories, and potentially Super Bowl, that is not coming this year, and potentially, we will see after next year, after we see who we have. But this is a win now move, and I don't think that we're prepared to win at this moment, so I'm going to have to go ahead and say no, man. But what do you all think about this potential move for Jalen Ramsey? Do you think the Carolina Panthers should go ahead and do what it takes to get him to Carolina, no matter what it costs? Whatever you all think, leave your comments down below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe. I am almost at 1K, man, my goal. But with that being said, I'm Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out. Peace.